Mbappé destroys Barcelona. Rabiot could be Premier League bound. Some astonishing refereeing in England. The transfer roundup and today's great debate all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host, Matt Froelich. You are the OneFootballers, and this is the Daily News. So first off, and of course, you saw the footballing results from last night. Kylian Mbappe destroyed. That is the only word I could use. Destroyed Barcelona at the Nou Camp last night. Like, at the moment, Barcelona have been on some pretty good form, but defensively, they are still lacking. And last night, that was completely and utterly exposed by Kylian Mbappe. A hat-trick along with the Moise Kean goal meant that Mauricio Pochettino's men won 4-1, and things are looking very difficult for Barcelona to turn it around in the second leg. They're going to be made even more difficult by the fact that Neymar looks to be fit from injury and will return from that game in a few weeks as well. Of course, all the talk after the game, weirdly enough, was about Kylian Mbappe and his future at the club. It was almost as though everyone was like, oh, he's actually really good. Maybe we should discuss his future, and maybe a few other clubs are interested. I don't know if this actually speaks for any clubs, but if they didn't know before last night that Kylian Mbappe was worth going in for, they definitely do now, and they definitely should have done. This hat-trick is not Kylian Mbappe going into the spotlight or making himself known as a top player. He already was. I've seen some nonsense in comment sections before about he's a speed merchant or he's overrated or he only does it in Liga. Not true at all. Kylian Mbappe is one of the best strikers in the world, will go on to be an absolute legend, and if you didn't know that before last night, shame on you. Anyway, he's done it on the big stage now, and in fact he's only the third player to score a hat-trick against Barcelona in the Nou Camp in the Champions League. The other two, of course, were Faustino Asprilla and Andrei Shevchenko, but you guys knew that already. In a night of actual other records as well, Lionel Messi, of course, broke another record. He has now scored 20 plus goals in all competitions for Barca in the last 13 seasons in a row, but that will be no consolation for him. I always feel like with defeats like this, it's always kind of worse when Barcelona go one goal up, when any team go one goal up, especially through a penalty, because when you look back at the highlights later, you're like, oh yeah, at that moment in time they were like, yes, penalty, 1-0 up, we're doing good, no one's really exposed us just yet, completely unaware of what is about to happen in the rest of the game. I thought, honestly, in the central midfield, Verratti, Gay and Paredes were unbelievable for PSG, and going forward, it wasn't just Kylian Mbappe. Like, Moise Kean and Mauro Icardi had their parts to play as well. Defensively, they were so strong. It never really looked like Barca were in charge, regardless of the fact that PSG hit them on the counter-attack again and again and again. There wasn't really much to counter. Barcelona looked blunt, and the argument between Piqué and Griezmann, which is clearly audible for those of you who speak Spanish on the internet when they're defending a corner, is there for all to see, and clearly things aren't quite right at the moment. Maybe Barcelona just don't have the quality in the squad to go ahead and challenge for the Champions League. We're actually seeing PSG doing what they should do when you consider how much money they've spent in putting together such an insane team, which is winning big in the big matches. Also last night, of course, there was another Champions League game going on, but it was rather kind of routine for Liverpool. They haven't been in great form of late, but they got back to their very best for the 2-0 victory over Leipzig, and that, combined with the fact that the second leg is going to be played at Anfield, should see them through to the next round, barring an absolute miracle. Moving on though, and to some transfer news, and actually as Juventus play tonight, one of their players is in the spotlight about a move to the Premier League, and that is Adrien Rabiot. This one is rather odd for two reasons. First off, for the fact that although he's not a guaranteed starter for Andrea Pirlo, he has played the majority of the games this season. He's played all but a few minutes in their Coppa Italia run to the final, and on top of this, he started 12 out of 18 games in Serie A. But apparently, he is one of these players who they would consider selling for, well, maybe not such a ridiculous price, around 30 million euros. Of course, they bought Adrien Rabiot on a free, so at this point, any transfer fee they get for him is going to equal profit. But of course, you've got to counter into the fact that he is actually a very good midfielder. The team interested in him, though, from the Premier League is Everton. No disrespect to Everton, they've already managed to attract some top players like James Rodriguez, and obviously a top manager in Carlo Ancelotti. And in fact, he's the one who could be the key to bring a Rabiot to Goodison Park. He gave the midfielder his debut when he was PSG manager back in 2012, and since then have had a pretty good relationship. The thing is, I just find it a bit weird that Rabiot would reject a contract to PSG. Like, obviously PSG, he didn't care about the money or the club, who were always in the Champions League and winning titles. Moved to Juventus, who are going to be winning titles and trophies they have done in Italy. And then moving to Everton, where obviously titles aren't really a given. I don't really think with any team in the Premier League they're a given unless you're signing for Manchester City. It just seems like a bit of a strange one in terms of career path, but the way Everton are going at the moment, if they get some more quality players to play under Carlo Ancelotti, there is no doubt in my mind they will be a top 4 challenger for years to come, and especially at this price, around 30 million euros, 25 million pounds, whatever it was. That's an astonishing deal for such a good quality midfielder. Moving on then, and to honestly a bizarre piece of news, so ridiculous I just had to put it in the Daily News. It comes from League One in England between Ipswich and Northampton, where the referee, Darren Drysdale, squared up to a player. I know what you're thinking, players square up to other players, not the referee. No, not this time. Obviously Darren fancied himself against Ipswich Town's Alan Judge, and they went head to head in the last minute, and it blew my mind because I want to see it more. That's right, I'm not condoning referee violence. I'm not saying they should put out fisticuffs and start swinging at players, like we saw in the French League where a referee kicked a player and then sent that player off. But honestly, the amount of abuse that referees get, the amount of threatening language, threatening behaviour, and just downright nastiness that comes out of players' mouths, every once in a while it's probably good to stand up to them and put them in their place. Going in for a headbutt or head-to-head, maybe not. I think Darren Drysdale was the name of the referee. Maybe he should calm down on that front a little bit. But everyone absolutely adored the likes of Pierluigi Collina. If you don't know who he is, Google it. The Italian referee who was so scary looking that he could like push and kind of charge into players and they'd back off. Like, I'm not saying that referees have to do it to earn respect. Their quality of refereeing decisions should earn their respect in the first place. But in all honesty, putting their stamp and charge on the match and actually saying to players, you know what, I'm not just going to sit here and take all this abuse like a duck. I think, yeah, you know what, that's pretty good. A sitting duck, I mean. I think that's how F off. Do it again, one more time. I am all for them letting the players know that they won't be treated like idiots and that they can be punished. Just not physically. Moving on next then to a quick roundup of the rest of today's transfer news that you might have missed. And we've got 2 bits from Manchester United. First off, Mason Greenwood has signed a new contract with the club which could see him stay there on this current deal up until 2026. And secondly, if Paul Pogba is to leave the club, United officials are apparently looking at Real Madrid's Fede Valverde to replace him. That'll be a very good deal in my opinion. Elsewhere, and Chelsea manager Thomas Tuchel seems obsessed with the idea of bringing AC Milan midfielder Frank Kessie to the club. And lastly but not least, as we spoke about the other day, Marco Rosa leaving Gladbach for Dortmund. Apparently he wants to take striker Marcus Thuram with him as well. So finally we come to this week's great debate where the guys in the OneFootball newsroom pose a question to all of you in the comment section down below. You can of course find my answer and their answer in the relevant article in the OneFootball app. But let us know down below who scored the greatest Champions League hat-trick ever. Of course this is inspired by last night's events. And although that was great, and although I'm tempted to think of all the many wonderful hat-tricks that Cristiano Ronaldo scored, Mr. Champions League himself, it's the original Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, who takes the prize for me. His hat-trick against Manchester United back in 2003 was insane. Finishing, pace, power, Brazilian flair. Real Madrid lost the game 4-3 but went through 6-5 on aggregate, and after all of this he got a standing ovation from the home crowd. That's how good his performance was. For me, it's just everything. It's brilliant and it is the greatest Champions League hat-trick of all time. You guys let me know your thoughts down below though. Check out everything else we've got going on in OneFootball, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.